Think of a war zone. You picture trenches, border checkpoints, maybe armored vehicles. You probably don't picture a dusty chalkboard, scattered geometry textbooks, and an empty desk. But right now, in the Indian state of Manipur, the front line has moved directly into the classroom. Before May 2023, Manipur was building a reputation as a developing educational hub. It had a vibrant academic culture, and its students regularly pushed the curve in highly competitive national exams. Then, violent ethnic clashes broke out between the majority Meitei community in the Impal Valley and the Kuki-Zo tribal communities in the surrounding hills. Since then, the academic calendar has effectively frozen. Indefinite curfews, frequent internet blackouts, and active violence have overwritten the school year for nearly 3 years. Persistent ethnic violence has effectively dismantled the state's entire framework for learning. To see how a region loses its academic future, we have to examine this collapse layer by layer. The most visible layer is physical destruction. Schools and colleges, especially in the hill districts, were targeted, looted, and burned down, resulting in the permanent loss of libraries and laboratories. Even the buildings left standing are rarely used for teaching. At least 23 higher education institutions and multiple secondary schools have been converted into temporary military security corridors or relief camps. Over 70,000 displaced people are now packed into these spaces. Families are living, sleeping, and eating their meals directly outside high school classrooms because they have nowhere else to go. By physically removing these classrooms, the state has lost its last remaining safe, neutral zones where youth from different backgrounds could actually interact. A second, invisible layer of collapse exists within the state's bureaucracy. The mechanisms that schedule exams, manage digital connectivity, and distribute funding have completely stalled. We can see the scale of this freeze in official records. This is a Ministry of Education document from April 2024, outlining the annual work plan and budget for Samagra Shiksha, an integrated school education scheme in Manipur. Looking at this pendency and infrastructure table, you can see vital projects sitting between 55% and 100% incomplete. Continuing down shows hundreds of basic necessities, like toilets, major repairs, and special needs facilities, remain unbuilt and unaddressed. The state isn't missing the money to fix these issues. Millions of rupees in approved spillover educational funds are sitting idle in accounts while students are forced to study in overcrowded relief camps. A government can rebuild a brick-and-mortar classroom in a matter of months, but a bureaucratic freeze that leaves essential funds locked away destroys institutional trust for a generation. This systemic failure forces parents into difficult choices, heavily divided by wealth. Rich families and government employees either flee the state entirely or send their kids to private out-of-state schools. Displaced children from lower-income families are left with nothing. The teachers left behind are operating in an environment of intense fear. In November 2024, a school teacher was killed in Jiribam, proving that educators themselves have become targets. Many professionals are seeking transfers or abandoning the profession completely. Even those who manage to escape the state aren't free from the crisis. Psychologists document a phenomenon called vicarious trauma among Manipuri students studying at universities across the rest of India. They face sudden internet blackouts, severed financial lifelines, lost communication with home, and a constant, overwhelming sense of dread that their families might be caught in the next wave of violence. Whether a student is navigating checkpoints in Infal or sitting in a dorm room 1,000 miles away, the psychological weight of the conflict makes focusing on an education nearly impossible. As the violence drags on, the student body is experiencing a rigid demographic split. Meitei students can no longer safely commute into Kuki-dominated hill districts, and Kuki-Zo students cannot enter the Meitei-majority Impal Valley. Growing up surrounded by extreme violence, witnessing the burning of homes and the disappearance of neighbors has incubated a state of chronic conflict-induced trauma in an entire generation of youth. In a healthy society, higher education acts as a bridge, fostering social cohesion, economic mobility, and peace-building. In Manipur, those institutions have been reduced to casualties of war. Local communities are attempting to fill the void. Grassroots efforts, like the Zero Out project, launched by civil society organizations, are actively tracking down dropout children and working to get them back into makeshift classrooms. But community resilience needs state support.
Stabilizing the region requires targeted national intervention, including trauma-informed care and the digital inclusion policies outlined in the 2020 National Education Policy. A political settlement and a ceasefire can stop the bullets, but until the state prioritizes rebuilding its classrooms and healing the minds of its students, true peace in Manipur will remain out of reach.